What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Reimagine I Am the Change podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Daniel Robertson, joined by two of my brothers here. We missed your Sherman today, but we're going to hold him in high regard today in spirit. So, what's up, bros?
What's going on, man?
What's happening?
Not much. How y'all doing?
I'm doing good, man.
Good.
Doing good.
I'm going to kick it over to Antoine because we got a very special guest all the way from Cali.
Indeed.
Big California here today. So, Antoine, let's go.
Yeah. Before us, going to that, we missed you last time, man. But Jay held it down for us. But
I had no doubt that you would.
Well,
I can always count on my brothers.
The side eye was crazy.
Yeah, let's get started with Dr. K. Man. All right, all the way from California, we got Miss Dr. K. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself though, so I don't mess anything up.
Well, hello, my name is Dr. K. Ramsey, and I'm the CEO of Tradeswomen Inc.
All right. We're glad to have you. And what time is it over there?
It is 10:17
AM? Well, obviously.
a.m. Well, yeah. I'm only in California.
Yeah, right.
We tried to get you on a couple like last year, and I think our time was like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock your time. So that ain't.
I was like, absolutely not. Nah. So thank you for accommodating me.
No question. I think we take for granted sometimes like how we can get ready versus like, we don't got to, she got to get everything together.
Come on now.
No, you fancy. You really you're like family now. So anytime I go down to the West Coast, I always hit you up and we have a good time. But let's talk about your journey though. I was telling the guy we just had breakfast or whatever, and we were just kind of talking about some things pertaining to the video and so forth. But let's just tell us a little bit more about yourself, or at least the folks on the podcast, a little bit more about what you currently are doing. But then we have some questions for you.
Yeah. Are we showing the video or not showing the video?
We may, right? But that'll be something that Jamil will have to do later on. But
okay, a little bit separate. Okay, sounds good. So again, as the CEO of Tradeswomen Inc., we actually help women get into the trades. We help them inspire and motivate them. So that's what I'm doing now. But a short story on how I got here, I was actually born into foster care and adopted at the age of 3 years old. And I was with my adoptive mother until she passed away. I was around 25 years old. And literally a year later, during my birthday, I received a letter in the mail from my mother, my actual biological mother. Number one, I had no idea that she knew where I lived. And so I had all these questions. And of course, my adoptive mom, I couldn't ask her. And so I was just wondering, were they communicating? 25 years, that's a long time. Were they communicating this whole time? I had no idea. And so one of in that letter, my adoptive mom, I call her name is Janice. That's what I would refer to her. And so Janice, the first thing that she asked for was money. And I'm like, I never even met you. You never wanted to see me. I don't know what you look like. This is my first interaction with her. And she asked for money. And she's asked me to put money on her books. And I had no idea what that meant. I was like, what? And so we are, corresponding via mail. And so my first question to her literally was, who is my father? That's all that I wanted to know what she looked like, but I just wanted to know who my dad was. As a little girl, I truly idolized my grandfather, and that was my guy. And so in going back to the story and asking her about who my father was, she wrote back again and said, don't ask me who your father is. I was raped. And so now I'm 26 years old, not only dealing with the grief of losing my adoptive mother, and then possibly having a relationship with Janice, now to learn that I am a product of sexual violence. And I was just like, how do I even manage that? How do I deal with that? It was already, I would say, somewhat not very difficult, but challenging growing up, being adopted during that time where closed adoption, it was a closed adoption. So I didn't know anyone from my family, and my adoptive family really treated me like I was their own, which is good. However, when you get to a certain age, you're just in that level of exploratory phase where you just want to know more about who you are. And so I didn't feel comfortable asking those questions with my adoptive mom, because it just seemed like it would hurt her. And so I was able to find like kind of like different mentors and role models along the way. But my first one was truly my grandfather.
Wow. There's so much to talk about. My question, I guess, would be, there's so much for you to balance being a young woman. I think naturally we grow up and there's, like you said, the exploratory phase where we're trying to figure out who we are. And, we're living with our actual parents, so like as just a normal young Black woman, you're searching for identity. And then to deal with, these people, even though they might love me like I'm their own, you know what I mean? I'm living in their house and they're taking care of me and they're treating me like I'm their actual daughter, like I'm not. There's someone else out there. There's other people out there that I more closely identify with, that I belong to, So to deal with that on, in compounding the things that we're going to go through naturally as young Black kids, and then to be a young Black woman, and then to be a young Black woman adopted, and then to be a young Black woman whose mother, when you said, send me some money, or put some money on my books, I immediately knew what that meant. You know what I mean? I know where you are when you say that, And so to deal with that, and then for her to respond when you're asking about your father, I was raped. There's like 4 or 5 levels that we're trying to unpack in this shorter period of time, being a young 25-year-old woman. Like, how do you balance all of that? What's that process like mentally and emotionally for you?
Yeah, I felt like, I had a choice. It made me think of the Matrix in essence, because like you can take the blue pill or the green pill, like you have an option, right? And so I knew that, I think as a little kid, I was always really good at imagination and just visualizing what I wanted. I grew up watching Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous and Cribs and all of those things. So I had those external factors that I held on to, and I could see myself on the other side of pain or anxiety or depression. I knew that in that moment, that wasn't going to be it. I knew that if I held on to that, it would be easy to say like, oh, after hearing that, I crawled up into a little ball and went into, severe deep depression, and people would understand that. And so you can go through naturally just as humans. But I knew that there was something else bigger and better for me, because during that time I was graduating with my bachelor's degree in psychology. And so I was on a path of helping others and wanting to inspire others and helping the community. And so it took many years before I was able to be at a place to speak openly and freely about my story, because I also grew up with a lot of shame, just being adopted, because it just felt like it was a secret. And I wasn't able to, number one, I didn't know a lot of people. I still don't know people that were adopted or had similar stories as me or anything. And so it wasn't until I started to work for a fatherhood program, once I completed my PhD, that for something motivated me. I really like Eric Thomas, and read one of his first books, Secret to Success. And that, for whatever reason, like I really just resonated with that that struggle story, as one of my friends calls it. And being homeless after my adoptive mom passed away, I call them her family. Her family kicked me out of the house, and so I experienced homelessness. So even though they took me in as their own, it was really my mom, my adoptive mom, took me in. It wasn't. I feel like I learned this after the fact. It was like they accepted me, but as soon as she passed away, it was like, oh, well, you can't stay. You can stay at the house for a little bit, but that's our house and we're going to sell it. So you need to leave. And I was just like, what? So it was just like that. I feel like maybe it was a few years later that I had to experience that. And to this day, I have not spoken to them since.
Wow. Okay, so I want to, I appreciate you being so open and vulnerable in regards to sharing your story with us. It's a powerful one, without a doubt. I want to really kind of sit down in the area of when we talk about boys and men of color, and if we had a young man that experienced some of the same things that you experienced coming up, they would become a statistic in a lot of places.
Absolutely.
Like, without a doubt. How did you navigate all of those things and push to the point where you decided, you know what, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get a doctorate, I'm going to get out here, and I'm going to help people? And what gave you the strength to really decide to really share your story? Because I don't know if I was in the same shoes, I would be that, open to just share that, because I know you mentioned the shame piece. But I don't want you to be ashamed of that. It's like I said, it's powerful, and there are young ladies that definitely all over the world that can benefit from you sharing that story. So I hope you can continue to do that. But like, what pushed you to this point where I said you could have been a statistic, but you have your doctorate. Like, that's huge.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And so I guess that was like around my mid-20s, I started to work for an agency over by USC, and we helped young folks in foster care, emancipating and probation kids getting out of the system to ensure that they would go to college or find, some sort of career. And so in doing research and developing that program, I didn't know what all the statistics were. I was just living it. And so as I learned more and more about what they said about, foster youth, and there was a lot of like embarrassment or shame, like, oh, that, it's like even on TV or sitcoms, like, oh, that's the foster kid. Like, oh, okay, so now we understand why they have a behavioral problem. So like even media kind of paints the picture and that level of negativity. And so you also hear that they will not graduate or matriculate, into higher education. They will go into, the prison system and all of these things. And so I was going to Pepperdine University to become a licensed clinician. And I remember writing a paper calling, like, I wanted to disqualify stereotypes. And so that was something that learning the research and pushing me, like, I didn't want to be a statistic. I wanted to be something better. I wanted to be able to inspire others that were in similar situations and help, just be able to help young people. So that pushed me. And for me, it was getting that level of education. I didn't really focus on anything else but that. It was education and making sure that when I had positions, in nonprofit organizations, that I was able to always level up once I got another degree. And if I wasn't, it was time for me to go and to keep leveling up.
Right.
I think that there's the beauty of that story, which I feel like really inspires so many people when they hear it, is we have an example of a young Black woman who used her pain as a force that drives her to use her imagination to achieve the success that she desires. Like, you didn't buckle, as you said, like you pointed out, Daniel, like so many young men would have with all of those things, because that's a heavy lift.
I would have folded.
So many reasons to give up, and we would have all understood. Right. We would have all made excuses. Well, they were adopted. They didn't know their parents. then when they finally met their mom, this is what happened. We see why. The average person. But I also think that the story is so inspiring because it shows what you can do if you believe you can. Because I heard some of the words that you used when you said, I imagined myself, achieving this or doing this, or, you saw yourself in a completely different light, what I mean? Under completely different, under the same circumstances, but coming out of those circumstances and being successful, not in spite of, but because of. And I think so many young people can draw from that. I mean, it's inspiring to me to hear. Like, I feel like, hey man, when you're going through something, it might not be that bad. It's not that bad because if this young woman could, use this as something that drives her to succeed, how come I can't? You know what I mean? And I think that's what young people should get from that story. That's what I got.
I'm thinking about it from this lens. So, Dr. K, you may not know this, but all three of us, we all have daughters, right? Yeah. And my daughter's actually sitting in our presence right now. So while she's over there on her phone, I hope that she's listening to this story as she pops her head up. But I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of, you said that your grandfather was your guy, your go-to, right? Your rock. How has having to grow up the way that you've grown up impacted your relationships with men? I'm just curious about that because I know between us three, we spend a lot of time with our daughters to ensure that they have all of the supports and things that they need to be who we hope they are going to become in this world and do great things. So I'm just curious about, over the years and just going through life, how not having, that, your biological dad in your life has kind of just impacted your relationships, because we've seen it on the male side and female side when young ladies and young men don't have their dads, how it impacts them coming up.
Yeah. It has been really difficult. So my grandfather passed away when I was 18 years old, and so as a little girl, I remember they lived in a city called Pasadena, and my grandparents had separate bedrooms. And I remember coming over there in the summer or holidays, and I would wave to my grandmother and go straight to my grandfather's room. And, I liked watching him watch basketball. I liked watching him do those male things and put on the cologne and aftershave, and he taught me how to tie a tie. He was a private investigator for the military, so he had all the suits all the suits, the ties. I mean, we would shine his shoes, and so I feel like I take some of those characteristics with me, but then also on the romantic side, it took me kind of many years to really understand like what type of male or even a male friend that I admire or that I connect with. And those characteristics, I lean back into, my grandfather when I see some of those similarities. And so when we are choosing a life partner, I can imagine if you don't have that ideal male or that role model to show you what this looks like or what it means to or what it feels like to be treated like a lady and to be treated with respect. There's so many challenges and emotional roller coasters that you may go through, unfortunately. And so I'm glad that I had that. I definitely wish that I had it longer, but like I said, the friends just like Antoine and just other male people that just really inspire me and motivate me, a lot of them have those similarities. So it's really it touches my heart to be able to see at least pieces of him in other people.
Wow. Yeah, that was a good question, Daniel. You didn't even know, but Dr. K actually mentioned that like just briefly before I was coming on, about like the importance of talking about healthy relationships, especially not having like the father and
The
a lot
model.
of it. Yeah, she talked about the importance of her grandfather. I mean, because we know that sometimes you could have a father in the house and he doesn't show you the things that you because he's disengaged,
Right.
and so I think that's super cool though.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on your book though. We actually, Daniel does a lot of work around mentorship. And all three of us have been mentored by the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know in your book you have like a section where you focus on mentorship. So can you talk about the importance of that?
Yeah. When I was just going through when life is lifing, I've had just like really phenomenal mentors, but then there's also times where maybe they're not available. And so that's how I literally discovered Eric Thomas. And so from there, I was like on YouTube and looking at just like different types of motivational speaker videos. And so I created a playlist. And so I began to just motivate myself literally every day, waking up, going to sleep throughout the day, like listening to that. And so in my book, I share a little bit about, what I shared with you all today, but then I also wanted to create a book that was a teaching tool for someone that needed to be mentored or for a mentee. And so each chapter is me actually interviewing people that have been like really important to me and what kind of helped them and navigate them through their life. And at the end of each chapter, there are teaching moments and tools that a person can utilize. Again, if you're working with a mentee or if you're a mentor. And so that was really important to me. That rolled out, I call it the COVID years. And so I focused on that during 2020 and actually released it on my late mother's birthday, which is in March. And so it was really just like really important, and it helped me become more and more comfortable just sharing my story. And one of the first times previously working as a program director for a fatherhood program, sharing the story about being a product of rape. And as I was, saying my goodbyes, a gentleman walked out and he said, that was the first time that I heard anybody say that, because I am too. And I was just like, oh my goodness, the chills and everything. And so this is big. And mind you, the fatherhood program, this was a anti-recidivism program. And so, these are men coming out and staying in transitional housing, and, who knows what their story is or was, but it was just really amazing for him to come up to me and see, although we have different life paths, but see that level of similarity and feel open to share it because I just shared it. So that was really amazing.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I remember around the time when I first met you, and we were riding back to the hotel, and I said something about the book, and you said something about like, I was like, oh, I want to buy a book, and you was like something about like, oh, if you're gonna get it, you better get it now. So,
You bought 6.
then I bought like 6 for some students at a local college here. So you've been a blessing to a lot of people, and I'm sure that for those who are able to watch this, that I hope they get something out of it. This has been a good conversation.
Yeah, one of the biggest things, because actually my dissertation was about how nonprofits help men and inspire men in inner city communities for Black and Brown men. And so my dissertation, I was able to kind of focus on some things, but my book is just like that next phase or the continuation of that. And so one of the cornerstones of that is understanding extrinsic motivation, which a lot of us have from the external world. I mentioned Cribs, if you all are familiar with that, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, like those old TV shows. But if we're able to have some of that growing up or at any age, then that kind of starts and sparks something in you. But then as life continues, then it becomes intrinsic motivation. So now you're like, okay, I'm doing this because of my community, because of my daughters, because of my family, because of XYZ. So you're able to tap in and truly discover your why and why you want to wake up every morning and do whatever you're doing and helping the community or just making a change. Like I speak on community because I'm 25 plus years within nonprofits or just whatever type of job, that you want to do or whatever type of work or lifestyle. I think it, once you tap into that intrinsic side, then I feel like you are living in that true purpose. And that's one of the biggest things that I wanted to do for myself.
So, what are some of the things that you've learned about yourself from working with men getting out, fathers, and now young women with regards to trying to learn trades and so on?
Yeah, I feel like, in my first few years, like working with men, it was being able to understand that vulnerable side of them, that emotional side, because it was, I was, like I said, I was a therapist. And so when people hear that, they're like, oh, that knock at your door, like, can I come in and sit on your chair for a second? And like, it's not a session. So to be able to see, kind of the hard side versus that polar opposite of men, it helped me just probably like give them more grace, because it's so different. As a woman, we kind of lead at times, with our emotions, and men may hide that side of them. And so it was so beautiful to see men finishing a program or finishing, their cohort. And some of them did never finish, say, elementary school or high school. And so for them to have that certificate of like, oh, and I'm learning how to co-parent and be a better parent and to be a better man. That's something that you don't see every day. And so when I think of just the work that I've done, that's probably the most touching that I've ever really like experienced in my life. And so that it's very inspirational. And then in working with women, sometimes my expectations can be a little bit different in working with men versus women, or knowing like kind of their background. And so now as the CEO, I'm working with my staff that's doing, a lot of the outreach and recruitment. But the expectations for me is having that level of excellence, that standard of excellence, because I'm like, if it has my name on it, we are going to be excellent. And so that is kind of first and foremost. Hopefully I answered your question. I feel like I went around in a circle, but
No, you did. I mean, it pretty much culminated into like the joy that you get by showing other people what they're capable of. And I believe that you would not have been able to do that at the level that you do it at had you not gone through some of the things that you've gone through and overcame, because you know what you're capable of. I think is the whole story, everything together is incredibly beautiful and incredibly motivating.
So, Dr. K, you mentioned being a therapist briefly in that response. So we've all been engaged in this work where we've been trying to create these brave and safe spaces for boys, fathers, young men of color to come together, build, bond, connect, and increase awareness around mental wellness, right? To start to have healthy dialogue around what mental health really is, and that it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it's good to address your mental health and the things that may keep you up at night or wake you up out of your sleep, or won't allow you to kind of concentrate on life sometimes, right? What have you seen work from a professional standpoint, but also kind of outside of that scope in regards to getting men to a place where they will be willing to actually see a therapist or seek therapy or some form of it? Because even lately we've been doing these barbershop talks, and it's really just a space where we want men to be open and vulnerable. So what have you kind of seen work that could kind of help us as we continue on this journey of doing those things for men in our community?
What I've seen is making sure that someone in the community is an advocate for mental health, that someone goes to school to become a therapist, that's a part of the neighborhood, that looks like us. I think that's the first step. Growing up, like I didn't I didn't know any therapists, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to become one. One of my dear friends, in the midst of my entire story, also in my 20s, early 20s, a dear friend of mine took his own life. And that led me from leaving a academic career of art and architecture and wanting to become a therapist. And so for me, on the other side of that, I was like, I wish I was a therapist. So someone at least could know in the neighborhood, in the community, at the local cafe that I was that person. That you can go to. And I think now in this season, and especially after 2020, and even for younger people in high school, and you see it more and more on TV, that it's less stigmatized. It's more common to say like, oh, what you doing? Oh, I'm about to go therapist, or I'm about to, like have this session. I think in the workplace, it becomes more common where it's an opportunity and an open forum to have, they call it employee assistant programs, where you can get these services for free.
Yeah, EAP.
EAP, yep.
Yeah, EAP. And so to be able to talk about it more, like at the barbershop, and to not have the raised eyebrows about like, oh, seriously? I see people with their shirts like, I love my therapist, like just different things where it just becomes just more and more common. I think that's first and foremost. Because if you're doing the barbershop talk and then someone in that barbershop in essence is a therapist, like, oh yeah, I'm in school to become, like I think that makes it more and more common. And if that person leaves their business card, and someone might walk by maybe discreetly or openly and grab it. And so making sure that those things are visually accessible and available.
Now, we appreciate you jumping on and just being so authentic.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for.
Your story is crazy inspiring.
Before we let you go, you got to tell us about them earrings that you got on, because them things is fire.
I'm sure I got to
That
match
looks like.
them.
Did you make those yourself, or that's definitely some black owned stuff going on right there?
For sure. Probably like at some flea market in the Bay Area. But thank you.
Got you. Oh, one last thing. And I know we're winding up, but you guys have some, and I don't know how much you could share with the public, but you all have some exciting stuff coming up with the organization that you oversee, right? And you all have some new projects coming up next year.
Yeah. So, and I only have been with the organization. Next month will be my 1 year anniversary. So I'm really excited about that. And within my first really like 6 months, one of the goals for any CEO is to really kind of go in and do a deep dive and do an analysis. And so within that analysis, I saw that the lack thereof of programs. And so I got down and with my grant development manager and with my team to start writing up a new program and submit for grant funding. And so we had initially submitted it for $850,000. And so when we received feedback, they said that, wow, this was amazing. This was the best application we received. And in addition to that, we have more money. Why don't you resubmit, and ask for more? And so we were like, what is more? They didn't tell us what more was. So we were like, well, let's add $200,000 more, right? And so they're like, oh, this is really great. Go ahead and just add some more. And we were like, what's more? We didn't want to add
$5 million.
Thank you.
And so it went from an $850,000 grant to now it's a $2 million grant. And so we will be working in the inner city of Southern California and providing leadership classes and it's a cohort based. So I'm used to doing the cohort with fatherhood. And so this program will be 80-20. So 80% helping women and that 20%. And I wanted to bring in men as well, because just within the skilled trades, there is this cyclical effect of women not being women being treated unfairly by men, unfortunately. And so I'm like, if we don't bring men into the room so they know how to treat them on a construction site, then that statistic will always be reoccurring. And so that was really important to me to say, like, no, let's teach them how to, work with women and respect women when they're at a construction site or just working within the skilled trades. And so we'll also be offering like fitness and nutrition classes, mental health. I always have to bring that piece in there. So it's a really holistic type of offering for the inner city. And so this will be at our Southern California branch, and we hope to bring it to Northern California as well. So that's one of my biggest victories so far.
Yeah, no, that's huge.
Doing big things in Big Cali out there.
Definitely.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Antoine, you got to connect her with Dr. Leah Daniels too.
Okay, I don't know her, but okay.
You do. She one of the OSHI leaders. She doing work around foster care too.
Really?
Yeah, that'll be a good connect because
Daniel knows the whole city of Buffalo and then some, and so yeah, he'll work that out. But no, I mean definitely. I mean you and I connected, Dr. K, and so anything that I was actually talking to somebody yesterday about some financial wellness stuff, and I thought about you and your group. So no, we talk. So if you whatever you need and there's something we can help with, just let us know.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank
thank
you.
you. Appreciate your time today.
Definitely a pleasure meeting you. And congratulations on all the good work that you've been doing out there.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, you gonna wrap us up, Daniel?
All right, y'all, we wrapping up. Once again, Reimagine I Am the Change podcast. As Sherman would say with my player partners over here, Brother Antoine Johnson, my man Jasir Lee, Daniel Robertson. Sherman, we miss you. We'll see you on the episode next time. To all of our supporters, we thank you and appreciate you. Check us out. Keep supporting us. Share it out. Love y'all. We out.
We out.
Yeah.